Right now, there is a very good chance you are drinking a cup of coffee. Or maybe you just finished an energy drink, a soda, or a mug of strong black tea. You're sipping it without thinking about it, just trying to kickstart your brain for another day of staring at screens and answering emails. But here is the thing about that perfectly normal morning habit. You are gleefully consuming a toxic botanical pesticide that was originally designed to paralyze biological nervous systems. And humans have been seeking out this exact poison for a staggeringly long time. It is a habit older than the written word, older than the wheel, older than the concept of money. The question is, how did ancient humans figure out that eating a toxic bug killer was the secret to getting through a morning meeting? Let's go back to the beginning. And I mean way back, millions of years before a human ever set foot in a coffee shop. To understand why we love caffeine, you have to understand why caffeine even exists in the first place. Plants do not want to be eaten. They can't run away, so they fight chemical warfare. Over millions of years, certain plants like the coffee shrub, the tea bush, and the cacao tree independently evolved a brilliant defense mechanism. They synthesized a bitter, nitrogen-heavy alkaloid. If a leaf-feeding insect took a bite of these plants, this chemical would overload their tiny nervous system, paralyze them, and drop them dead in the dirt. That chemical is caffeine, but evolution is sneaky. Plants eventually realized that while a high dose of caffeine kills a pest, a very, very low dose does something entirely different to a pollinator. When a honeybee visits a citrus flower laced with a tiny trace of caffeine, the drug stimulates the bee's brain. It actually improves the insect's memory. The bee gets a little buzz, remembers exactly where that specific flower is, and keeps coming back for more. Think about that. Plants essentially invented a chemical loyalty program millions of years before humans existed. They built a drug cartel. Fast forward to early humans. Our hunter-gatherer ancestors were roaming the earth, testing every leaf, root, and berry they could get their hands on to see what kept them alive and what killed them. At some point, a very brave, very tired human chewed on a specific leaf and noticed that their heart beat a little faster. Their vision felt a little sharper. The exhaustion of hunting and gathering just sort of faded into the background. We don't know the exact name of the first human to experience a caffeine rush, but the oldest archaeological evidence points us toward ancient China. Legend says that around 2700 BC, the mythical Emperor Shennong was boiling water when a dead leaf from a wild tea bush blew into his pot. He drank it, felt amazing, and boom, tea was born. But the hard archaeological facts are even cooler. In 2016, researchers uncovered the tomb of Emperor Jing of Han, dating back to 141 BC inside. They found the oldest physical evidence of high-quality tea leaves ever discovered, packed away for the afterlife. Except, humanity wasn't just drinking it back then. In the Paleolithic era, people were likely just chewing raw tea leaves or crushing them into a bitter paste to survive grueling physical labor. It wasn't a relaxing beverage. It was a survival tool. But chewing leaves is one thing. Turning a rock-hard, bitter seed into a global obsession is another. Enter coffee. If you go to the highlands of Ethiopia, you will find the ancestral home of the Arabica coffee plant. The famous myth here is about a goat herder named Kaldi in the 9th century. He noticed his goats eating red berries and literally dancing around the pasture. He tried the berries, joined the dance party, and took the discovery to a local monk. The real history. The indigenous Oromo people of Ethiopia were likely the first to hack the coffee bean, but they weren't brewing vanilla lattes. They were crushing the raw, caffeinated cherries, mixing them with animal fat, and rolling them into dense little protein balls. It was the world's first energy bar, designed to sustain warriors on incredibly long journeys. It wasn't until the 1400s that caffeine truly leveled up. The practice of roasting and brewing coffee beans leapt across the Red Sea to Yemen. Here, Sufi monks realized that if they roasted the seeds and brewed them into a dark, bitter liquid, it gave them a massive tactical advantage. They needed to stay awake for intense, midnight prayer rituals. Coffee was a divine cheat code. It banished sleep. Here is what makes this so important. For the entirety of human history up to this point, our species was ruled by the sun. When it got dark, you got tired, and you went to sleep. Your body's natural circadian rhythm dictated your entire existence. Caffeine broke that chain. For the first time, humans had chemical control over their own alertness. When coffee and tea finally swept into Europe in the 1600s, it caused a seismic shift in human progress. Before caffeine, what did the average European drink all day? Beer and wine. Water was often contaminated and dangerous, so people drank weak alcohol from breakfast until dinner. The entire continent was basically operating on a low-level, permanent buzz. Then, the coffeehouse arrived. Suddenly, people swapped their morning pint of ale for a steaming cup of liquid focus. Caffeine literally sobered up humanity. Instead of sitting in dark taverns slurring their words, people gathered in brightly lit coffeehouses to debate politics, science, and philosophy. The French Revolution, the Enlightenment, the foundations of modern capitalism, all of these were fueled by people sitting in coffeehouses, vibrating at a high frequency, and talking a million miles an hour. The London Stock Exchange started in a coffeehouse. Isaac Newton's principles of physics were heavily debated over coffee. Humans traded a depressant for a stimulant, and the modern world was born. But the stakes get even higher. If coffeehouses fueled the ideas of the modern world, caffeine fueled the muscle. By the 1700s and 1800s, the Industrial Revolution was in full swing. We built massive factories filled with giant machines, and there was an immediate problem. Machines do not need to sleep, but the humans running them did. Capitalism demanded that workers stand at an assembly line for 12 to 14 hours a day, performing dangerous, repetitive tasks under artificial light. Human biology simply wasn't built for that. So, factory owners heavily encouraged the consumption of tea and coffee. The British Empire literally went to war and reshaped global trade just to ensure a cheap, endless supply of caffeinated tea for its working class. In the United States, by the 1950s, the concept of the coffee break was officially written into corporate culture and union contracts. Think about how wild that is. A legally mandated pause in your labor, specifically designed for you to ingest a psychoactive plant chemical so you can return to the machines and work harder. We finally figured out exactly how this wizardry worked in 1819. A German chemist named Friedlieb Ferdinand Runge isolated the magic molecule. He extracted pure caffeine, proving exactly what was hijacking our brains. When you consume it, caffeine perfectly blocks adenosine, the chemical in your brain that builds up throughout the day to tell you you're tired. Caffeine doesn't actually give you energy. It just brilliantly lies to your brain. It slips into the receptors and puts a piece of tape over the check engine light. And once we isolated that molecule, we put it in absolutely everything. Coca-Cola, neon energy drinks, pre-workout powders. We took an ancient evolutionary defense mechanism and turned it into a multi-billion-dollar pillar of modern survival. Today, caffeine is the most widely consumed psychoactive drug on planet Earth. Over 80% of adults consume it every single day. We are completely, hopelessly hooked. So here is the full picture. A plant evolves a deadly neurotoxin to paralyze bugs. A bee gets a tiny buzz and remembers a flower. An ancient human chews a leaf to survive a hunt. A monk brews a dark liquid to talk to God. A continent stops drinking beer and invents modern science. And a factory worker chugs a hot mug to survive a 14-hour shift. Which brings us right back to you, sipping your iced coffee or energy drink this morning. You aren't just trying to wake up. You are participating in a multi-million-year-old chemical arms race. You are using the exact same biological cheat code that built the modern world. Because at the end of the day, being human is exhausting. And sometimes, the only way to keep the lights on is to borrow a little poison from a plant. If you enjoyed this video, you don't need caffeine to hit the like button, just a tiny bit of energy. Stick around, watch another video, and keep wondering why we are the way we are.